He outsmarted his ex-wife in court, and she never saw it coming. Daniel knew his marriage to Lisa was over, but what he didn't expect was the legal battle that followed. When the divorce was finalized, Lisa wasn't satisfied with the settlement. She wanted more. Specifically, she believed she was entitled to a portion of Daniel's inheritance. Confident, she took him to court, arguing that as his former wife, she deserved a share. But what Lisa didn't know was that Daniel had planned for this moment long before their marriage ended. Every asset he inherited had been strategically placed under his parents' names, leaving her with no legal claim. As Lisa made her case, the judge listened, but her argument crumbled without solid evidence. One by one, her claims were dismissed. Meanwhile, Daniel remained composed, fully aware that he had taken the necessary steps to safeguard his wealth. In the end, the law was on his side, reinforcing a simple but crucial lesson. Inheritance is not community property, and without legal grounds, Lisa had nothing to stand on. Lisa had always lived comfortably during their marriage, enjoying the lifestyle that Daniel's family wealth provided. But after the divorce, things changed. The settlement she received wasn't enough in her eyes, especially when she knew Daniel had recently inherited a substantial sum. She convinced herself that she had contributed to his success, stood by his side for years, and deserved a piece of the fortune. Determined, she hired a lawyer and took Daniel to court, and fully expecting the judge to side with her. She presented arguments about how their marriage had been a partnership, how she had supported him through his career, and how it was only fair that she received a portion of his inheritance. With confidence, she laid out her case, believing that a legal loophole or a sympathetic ruling would work in her favor. But the more she spoke, the more cracks appeared in her argument. The judge listened, but remained unmoved. Lisa had no documents, no agreements, no legal foundation to prove that Daniel's inheritance was shared marital property. Yet she persisted, hoping that sheer determination would sway the court. Meanwhile, Daniel sat calmly, watching the proceedings unfold. He had anticipated this move. He had spent months preparing, ensuring that not a single cent of his inheritance could be touched. His assets weren't in his name. They were under his parents. No matter how hard Lisa fought, there was nothing she could do to break through the legal safeguards he had put in place. Long before his marriage fell apart, Daniel understood the risks that came with wealth. He had seen too many stories of people losing everything in messy divorces, and he wasn't about to become one of them. When his grandfather passed away and left him a sizable inheritance, Daniel made a crucial decision. He wouldn't hold the assets in his own name. Instead, he worked with legal experts to transfer ownership to his parents, ensuring that no court could ever rule it as part of his marital estate. Every property, every investment, every account linked to his inheritance was meticulously structured to be untouchable. On paper, Daniel owned nothing. His parents held the deeds, the bank accounts were under their names, and legal contracts ensured that the wealth would pass to him only under specific conditions, conditions that a divorce could never override. Lisa had no idea. She assumed that because she had been married to Daniel, she was automatically entitled to a share of whatever he received, but the law didn't work that way. Inheritances, by default, are considered personal property unless they are commingled with marital assets. And Daniel had been careful. No joint accounts, no shared investments, not a single transaction that could blur the lines between what was his and what was theirs. So when Lisa confidently argued her case in court, expecting to expose hidden wealth, she was blindsided. Her lawyer asked for financial statements, asset records, anything that proved Daniel had received the inheritance personally. But every request hit a dead end. There was no paper trail linking Daniel to any significant wealth, because legally he had none. As the reality of the situation set in, Lisa's confidence began to crumble. She had walked into court believing she had leverage, but Daniel had played the game smarter. He hadn't just protected his inheritance, he had made it legally invisible. The tension in the courtroom was palpable. Lisa sat upright, her lawyer by her side, flipping through documents with a look of determination. She had walked in expecting a battle, but was confident she could prove her case. After all, she had spent years married to Daniel, standing by him as he built his life. To her, it was only fair that she walked away with a portion of his inheritance. Her lawyer stood and began arguing that, as Daniel's former wife, Lisa had contributed to the stability that allowed him to secure his financial future. She was his partner, the lawyer insisted. She supported him emotionally and financially throughout their marriage. She is entitled to a share of what he gained during that time. Daniel sat silently, his face unreadable. He had expected every word. Lisa's argument was built on emotion, not legal standing, and the judge saw right through it. Do you have any financial records proving that this inheritance was ever shared between both parties? The judge asked, adjusting her glasses as she looked down at Lisa's lawyer. A brief hesitation. Lisa turned toward her attorney, waiting for a response. We believe, the lawyer started carefully, that Mr. Daniels, using his full name for emphasis, has benefited from this inheritance throughout the marriage, and as such, my client should be entitled to a portion. The judge leaned forward. Belief is not evidence, counselor. Do you have financial records? A paper trail? Any legal document that shows this inheritance was commingled with marital assets? Silence. Lisa shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Your Honor, Daniel's attorney interjected, standing with a folder in hand. I'd like to submit documentation confirming that all inherited assets were legally transferred to Mr. Daniels' parents and were never held in his name. He approached the judge, placing a neatly prepared file before her. The judge skimmed through the documents, nodding as she read. It is clear, she finally said, looking directly at Lisa, that this inheritance was never part of the marital estate. There is no legal basis for your claim. Lisa's face dropped. Her entire case had unraveled in a matter of minutes. What she had assumed would be an easy victory had turned into a humiliating defeat. As the judge dismissed the case, Daniel allowed himself a small, satisfied smile. He hadn't needed to say a single word. His preparation had spoken for itself. The sound of the judge's gavel echoed through the courtroom. Case dismissed, she declared firmly, closing the file on Lisa's claim. Just like that, it was over. Lisa sat frozen, her hands gripping the edge of the table. The reality of her defeat was sinking in. She had walked into court believing she had the upper hand, certain that she could argue her way into a financial windfall. Instead, she had been outmaneuvered at every turn. There was no hidden money to uncover, no loophole to exploit, no sympathetic ruling in her favor. Daniel had played his cards flawlessly. Daniel, on the other hand, remained composed, offering nothing more than a brief nod to his attorney. He had expected this outcome. After all, he had spent years ensuring his financial security remained untouched by any future complications. His decision to place his inheritance under his parents' names had been a calculated move, one that had just saved him from a long and costly legal battle. As Lisa left the courtroom, her frustration was evident. There would be no second chance, no appeal, no way to undo the ironclad legal protection Daniel had put in place. She had gambled on entitlement, and she had lost. For Daniel, the moment was a quiet victory, but also a stark reminder of the importance of financial foresight. Many people assume that love and marriage will last forever, but emotions change and legal battles can arise when least expected. His story was proof that preparation isn't just about wealth, it's about control. Key lessons to take away. Inheritances are personal property. No matter how long a marriage lasts, an inheritance remains separate unless it is commingled with joint assets. Legal preparation is everything. Daniel's decision to move his assets out of reach before the divorce ensured his financial security. Emotions don't win in court. Evidence does. Lisa's argument was based on feelings, but without documentation, she had no legal standing. As Daniel walked out of the courthouse, he felt a sense of closure. He had protected what was rightfully his, not through deception or loopholes, but through careful planning. And in the end, that had made all the difference.